Hello and welcome back to my channel. How are you all doing? Hope you're well. I know it's been a while, but I'm back again. So I always get asked what the best cabbage variety is for making sauerkraut. So in today's video, we'll be looking at making sauerkraut with 3 varieties of cabbage. That's 3 varieties of cabbage I could get my hands on, which is our regular cabbage, also known as the green or white cabbage, the sweetheart cabbage, and Savoy cabbage. If you want to know the best cabbage you can use next when making your sauerkraut, please keep watching. To begin, I'm going to start with our lovely good old green or white cabbage. 1 tablespoon of sea salt. I'm using coarse sea salt, but if you've got fine sea salt, that's fine as well. But please ensure your salt is pure sea salt with no anti-caking agent or any other ingredients, as this might affect the outcome of the sauerkraut. Then I'm going to be using 1 liter glass jar, and here's an overview of everything I'll be using for this recipe. We're keeping this simple. I'll take out the outermost part of the cabbage, which I'll discard, and take out these parts as well, which I'll save for later and use as a fermentation weight. Now that is out of the way, I'll start prepping the cabbage by dividing it into 2. Cutting the cabbage into 2 was really tough. I'll be using just 1/2 and save the other half for my cabbage soup, which I'll be making later in the week. Next, I'll take out the stalk and begin slicing. I'll further divide the cabbage lengthwise for ease of handling. And now I'll begin slicing them thinly. I'll try my best to maintain an even size so that they all get a chance to ferment at the same rate. Remember, when making fermented vegetables, always remember to wash your hands and use clean utensils. Now that I'm done slicing the cabbage, this is what they look like. Here's a sample of the size I'm going for. I have rinsed my cabbage off camera, as I prefer to rinse my cabbage before fermenting so as to get rid of any dirt or debris. I'll go ahead and add the salt and use my hands to massage the salt into the cabbage to produce brine, which is the liquid the cabbage will be fermented in. I have chosen to keep this recipe to just 2 ingredients, which is cabbage and salt, as I want to keep the earthy and slightly sweet flavors of the cabbage as it is. But please feel free to adapt this recipe by adding your favorite spices to your fermentation. This is going to be a long one, but we'll get there. After a couple of minutes of massage, the cabbage has now produced some brine. I'll carry on till I have enough brine. Now that I'm satisfied with the amount of brine produced, it's time to start transferring the cabbage into the jar. I'll place a funnel at the mouth of the jar for ease and use a tongue to transfer the cabbage. As I go on, I'll use my tamper to push down the cabbage so as to make the jar as compact as possible and to release any air pockets. I'll go ahead to transfer the rest of the cabbage into the jar. Now that all the cabbage has been transferred, I'll go ahead to give it a final push down to make it compact and release more juice. As you noticed in the beginning, I did not have a glass fermentation weight as part of the ingredients or tools I'll be using. So for this recipe, I'll simply fold the cabbage leaves. Remember the ones I kept aside at the beginning? I'll simply place them in the jar to push down the cabbage, which in turn will keep the cabbage submerged in the brine. As you can see here, the cabbage leaves which I used as fermentation weights were larger than expected, which means they were not fully submerged in the brine, which could potentially lead to a moldy sauerkraut. In order to avoid this, I simply added a tablespoon of sea salt to water, then poured it into the jar. That way, we avoid the risk of our sauerkraut potentially becoming moldy and everything is fully submerged in the brine. And that's all for our sauerkraut using the green or white cabbage. I'll leave this to ferment for 2 weeks in a warm place. For the next sauerkraut recipe, I'll be using the Savoy cabbage. This sauerkraut recipe will be a bit spicy. I'll be using the Savoy cabbage, also known as Milan cabbage or Lombard cabbage. This cabbage is similar to the Tuscan kale or the dinosaur kale and almost leathery in texture. Then I've got a teaspoon of turmeric powder and ground black pepper so as to increase the turmeric's bioavailability, that is, so that the body can get the utmost benefit from the consumption of turmeric. I'll also be using 3 cloves of garlic and 2 tablespoons of sea salt, a thumb of fresh ginger, a glass jar, and of course a glass weight to keep the vegetables submerged in the brine. Here's an overview of everything I'll be using for my sauerkraut recipe using the Savoy cabbage. I'll begin by preparing my garlic. I'm just going to take the skin off as I'll be using them whole. Next, I'll prepare my ginger by scraping the skin off using a knife. Then I'll cut it into small cubes. This is what both my garlic and ginger are looking like. Now it's time to prepare the Savoy cabbage. I'll start by taking out the outer leaves. Then I'll divide it into 2 and take out the stalk. This variety of cabbage is super light, so I'll be using the whole of it. After the stalk has been taken out, I'll divide each half into 2 and begin slicing them. Not too thin and not too large, just medium. Now that I'm done slicing the Savoy cabbage, this is what it looks like. Here, I've just washed the sliced cabbage off camera to get rid of dirt or bugs. Next, I'll add the salt to the cabbage and begin massaging. In retrospect, I should have gotten a bigger bowl as I was being very careful not to make a mess on the table. This cabbage was so tough to massage. I had to be on my feet as it took so long to produce brine. I literally had to start squeezing them to break down the leaves for the brine to produce. And I also think this might be due to the leathery texture compared to other varieties of cabbage. After what seemed like 1,000 years, it eventually began producing brine, but I still had to carry on as it hadn't produced enough brine to my satisfaction. Hooray! I eventually got there, but really this was the toughest variety of cabbage I've worked with. Next, I'll add the fresh ginger and garlic, then the turmeric and black pepper powder and mix. I'll mix until everything is well combined. Now that everything is well mixed, this is what the Savoy cabbage looks like. Next, I'll place a funnel at the mouth of the jar and begin transferring the cabbage using a tongue. I'll pause and use a tamper to push down the cabbage, then I'll go ahead to add some more. I'll transfer everything in the bowl into the jar and push it down some more to release some air bubbles. Next, I'll place the glass weight as you have seen in the first recipe. If you haven't got a glass weight, you could use a vegetable, fold it up and place it in the jar to keep the cabbage submerged. I've used a carrot in the past, which worked just fine. I'll clean up the mess at the mouth of the jar and screw on the lid. Just look at that, so pretty and colorful. Just as with the previous recipe, I'm going to place this on the kitchen counter or in a dark and warm place for 2 weeks to ferment. Now let's look at our third and last variety of cabbage for sauerkraut. Here I have the sweetheart cabbage, also known as the pointed cabbage. It's popularly known as sweetheart cabbage because it has a sweeter taste than the white or green regular cabbage. For this recipe, I'll be using 2 carrots, a few Brussels sprouts, 1 tablespoon of sea salt, black peppercorn, a glass jar and a glass weight. Here is an overview of everything I'll be using for this recipe. Here, I've peeled and washed the Brussels sprouts and carrots. Now, let's prepare the sweetheart cabbage. To begin, I'll cut the cabbage into 2 lengthwise and remove the outer leaves, which have wilted and then take out the stalk. I'll further divide the cabbage into two for ease of handling and begin to slice them into smaller bits. I'm also using just one half and saving the other half for something else. Now that I'm done slicing the cabbage, this is the size I'm going for. I've just rinsed the cabbage and this is what they're looking like. Next, I'll prepare the carrots by cutting them into strips and then go ahead to divide the Brussels sprouts into two. Next, I'll add the sea salt and peppercorns and begin massaging the cabbage so as to produce brine, which is the liquid it's going to be fermented in. Now look at that. The cabbage has produced enough brine to my satisfaction, so I think I'm going to stop massaging the cabbage now. Next, I'll attach a funnel to the mouth of the jar and begin transferring the cabbage, carrot and Brussels sprout mix. I'll pause and use my temper to push down the cabbage so it's compact. I'll go ahead to add some more cabbage to the jar and push them down. Next, I'll put in the glass weight, clean the mouth of the jar and seal the jar for 2 weeks. I'll place it in a warm place or on the kitchen counter while it ferments. Just look at that. The colors are so gorgeous. So these are the 3 jars of sauerkraut and we'll see the result in 2 weeks. These are made with regular cabbage, Savoy cabbage and sweetheart cabbage. So it's 2 weeks later and the sauerkrauts are ready for consumption. Let's open them up one after the other. I'll start with the sauerkraut with the regular green or white cabbage. Can you see the bubbles? I'm really excited for this one. So I'll go ahead to take out the cabbage which was used as the fermentation weight. As you can see, it has also fermented, so that means more sauerkraut for me. I'll scoop out a bit of the sauerkraut. Here's a closer look. Next, I'll open up the sauerkraut made with the Savoy cabbage. The garlic has turned bluish green, which is absolutely normal. It's due to a chemical reaction which occurs when the amino acids in the garlic, which contain sulfur, are introduced to an acid. Next, I'll take out the fermentation weight, then go ahead to scoop out a bit of the Savoy cabbage sauerkraut. Just look at all those bubbles. Here's a closer look. And last but not the least is the sweetheart cabbage sauerkraut. I'll take out the fermentation weight and scoop out some. And here is a closer look. In conclusion, my favorite cabbage out of all three for sauerkraut is a tie between the regular green cabbage and the sweetheart cabbage, as they're both similar in texture and easy to work with. As for the Savoy cabbage, it was tough, leathery, and took a long time to produce brine. All in all three sauerkrauts tasted wonderful. So I guess we've come to the end of this video on the best cabbage variety for making sauerkraut. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to my channel, and please click on the notification bell icon so that you can get notified whenever I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. See you next time. Bye.